Hello, welcome, good afternoon with the new Pisces moon. Moon in Pisces. Yes, indeed. I hope that you can all hear me and see me and are here with me in cyberspace because we have a lot to share today. And I just want to begin with why we're doing this. Really, we have all incarnated at a very powerful time of transition for planet Earth. We all have had previous incarnations. We all have soul patterns. We all have soul intentions. And it is those unconscious soul intentions that have brought us to Earth at this time of the changing of the ages, the changing of the guard. And by golly, each one of you, especially if you're listening to this webinar and you are interested in astrology, you know already that your astrological birth chart holds that intention, and that each and every birth chart can help each and every individual find their intention to come into an alignment with their conscious ego, with their unconscious soul intention. And what does that do? That brings harmony, consistency, calm, integration when we connect our conscious with the unconscious. So that's what this is all about. It is very healing. I want to stress that astrology is a healing art. Really, I mean, when you help people work through their trauma, work through their emotions, work through their disillusionment and their questions and their doubts and their fears, it is super healing. I mean, just think of all the beautiful serotonin and dopamine and all those good chemicals that you release in people's brains every time you do a reading. Okay, to stay serious. Okay, well, today we really want to say that this is Module 5, and I understand that I have a varied audience here. There may be some of you that have just come across the Pele report. There may be some of you that have done Module 1, 2, 3, and 4. There may be some of you that have been doing astrology for a long time, and this is your, first just coming to New Paradigm Astrology. But really, what we are doing now and what I feel is so important is we are opening the New Paradigm School of Astrology. We want to certify astrologers. We want you to go out there and feel solid, comfortable, as a counseling astrologer to help people, to teach people, to bring astrology to more and more and more people's lives. Healing, helping, sharing, teaching, assisting people to fulfill their deepest soul intentions. That's what it's all about. So rather than each of us just doing readings for people, how many readings can I do in a lifetime? I've just said, you know what, and I've been requested, people have asked me, it's like, okay, could you just, we want to be certified. So we're doing this. So the modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're all about preparing, you to look at a natal birth chart. And that does a lot. There's a whole lot there, a whole lot of healing, information that we can really open up and expand people's consciousness. Module 5 now will bring in the transits and the progressions. Today, each one of the Dream Team members is going to explain to you a little bit about what they are going to be bringing in Module 5. And then Module 5 is going to also be the final preparation. After you do these, this is the full course, Module 5, and then you come into the final course for certification. And that is on the website, actually, but we're not going to, I don't want to take up too much time today. I want to really just say that this is a great opportunity for those of you, if you've been doing astrology for a long time, you can jump right into module 5. If you have done module 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is your next progression. And it's about incorporating the past with the present and the future. I love it. Astrology is just so, so amazing. Okay, so let's just hesitate no further. I want to introduce Ari Moshe Wolf, who has just become a father a couple months ago. Congratulations, Papa. Turn on your freaking video and microphone and tell everybody about what you're going to be. This starts March 1st. So we will be releasing Ari's module along with the workbook and everything else for module 5 on March 1st. And
Okay.
I'm still not seeing him.
Can you hear me? Am I heard?
Gotcha.
Can you hear me? And you can see me. Great. Hi, everyone. So this module is so interesting. Whether or not you've joined us until this point, we've basically learned how to interpret the chart to understand the basic soul dynamics the soul brings into this life. In a way, that's half the picture. When you're born, there's this amazing mathematical harmony between the moment of your birth and the particular astrological alignment in that moment. That's your birth chart. And the moment after your birth, what's created is the interface between two things. Your natal chart, which is like a frozen moment in time, but that frozen moment in time contains and reflects within it this profoundly deep, multi-layered map that describes where you're coming from. What is the nature of your own conscious evolution and awakening? What's unraveling within your own consciousness? And why did you come into this world, into this experience? That's one part of it. And that is interfacing with the present moment, the changing. The natal chart's the fixed template. Like your body, you have it with you. It is your template from birth till death. So that is the fixed context for this entire life. And then whatever's happening in the sky in any particular moment of time corresponds to the unique cycles and patterns that are manifesting at this particular moment in time. And we have to relate that back, bring it back to the context of your natal chart. And so that's what's called transits. I'll give you an example here, and I'll share my screen. These are the transits of yesterday, February 19th, 2020. Now imagine that this is an event. This could be the birth of someone or an event. Anything that is conscious that can be identified has a natal chart. Now take that event on the left here and look at it 1 hour later. This is relationship. 1 hour later, what's changed? Well, look at the moon. Here it's 17 degrees Capricorn. Now it's 18 degrees Capricorn. Let's take that same event and look 1 year later. The further you progress in time, the more cycles begin to unfold. The sun had already moved around the zodiac a whole cycle. Venus is in Aquarius here, where it was in Aries over here. It moved a whole cycle almost in a whole year. The nodes move from Capricorn, Cancer, to Sagittarius, Gemini. We have in the transiting experience these cycles that repeat themselves. And the longer you live, the more complex and multifaceted your life becomes. If you live 12 years, you will experience an entire Jupiter cycle. If you live 29 years, you will experience a whole Saturn cycle. Every 7 years, Saturn will square itself. Every 18.6 years, the nodes will return to where they were when you were born. At around 40, Pluto will square itself. Every 2 years, Mars returns to where it was when you were born. All of these cycles are continuous. And it's the interface between the present moment unfolding within time to our core natal intention. So I'll be introducing all of this. What are transits? And what I just presented to you a moment ago is what's called a biwheel. A biwheel is this really cool astrological technique of putting two wheels within each other. So right here, the inside wheel is February 19th, 2020, and the outside wheel is February 19th, 2021. Learning how to use a biwheel is a way to understand the transits. If we say Neptune is in Pisces, and let's say you were born February 19th, 2020, I'll want to know, where is Neptune transiting in your chart? Right? So if this inner wheel was a birth chart, we would say that Neptune is in your 10th house. Biwheels and even tri-wheels and quadri-wheels are ways of looking at all the various cycles and relating it back to the core natal imprint. And I show this with George Harrison here. This is George Harrison, February 24th, 1943. This inner wheel is his natal chart. And this outer wheel is December 30th, 1999, the day he was attacked in his own house. And he was stabbed. Now, I'm not going to take this apart, but when you think about an event, you want to think about, okay, well, Mars, right? Mars is violence, attack. He was stabbed in the lungs. Lungs correspond to Aquarius and Uranus in his own home. So you would just kind of want to be attuned to, well, where might you see that in the chart? Look, you have Mars in the 4th house. So Mars, an attacker in the 4th house in his home, on the south node in Aquarius. Aquarius symbolizing the lungs. So when you look at astrology, and this is one of the things that I feel, especially when you're a beginner student, it's easy to miss this. You can't look at a chart. You can't even look at the transits and be like, oh yeah, on December 30th, 1999, someone's going to come into your home and stab you. It doesn't work that way. In fact, it kind of works the other way. It's through observation and correlation. The symbols of the natal chart and the movement of the transits can manifest on various levels of experience. And as we grow, we develop a greater apprehension and understanding of our individual karma. And in that sense, we can begin to understand the unique way these things will manifest in our lives. But that's a wisdom and an insight that we all cultivate in our own timing. If I were to say Mars is transiting in your 4th house, it can mean so many things. And it's not necessarily negative. But we use the transits and we always come back to the why, right? What's the evolutionary intention? What's the greater purpose behind these things? We can prepare ourselves and kind of tune into what's happening on the inside. Because the cosmos, as they are unfolding out there, are also unfolding in here. So we don't actually need to look to astrology. We don't need to look into the future to have our own direct experience. If there's a transit coming, we already know it. And sometimes we just have to experience what comes our way. We can't take responsibility for that. But to learn and to grow from it and to understand and cultivate more wisdom and insight into the cycles of our lives. So when we learn transits, it gives us the ability to objectify our reality and not take things personally. If we see a transit coming, we can say, okay, Venus is moving into my house of sex, marriage, and divorce, the 8th house. We can feel that. We can tune into that and reflect upon, okay, what are some challenges I might be experiencing in my marriage? What's in my 8th house? We can use it as a gateway, and even retrospectively. We can think about, okay, this transit just happened and I had this experience. What's happening? What's unfolding? Where is there an invitation and a possibility for growth here? So I'll end this here, but the second part of what I'm going to introduce during my module, which is so interesting and so exciting, is this thing called secondary progressions. And secondary progressions is this trippy way of working with time, where one day after your birth, equals 1 year. And to the transits when you are 10 days old are the progressions when you are 10 years old. And there are many kinds of progressions. We'll be working predominantly with secondary progressions in this course. But during this whole module, we'll be learning transits and secondary progressions, which is sort of like a subset of the natal chart. So if you stick around, you'll learn so much about mapping the cycles and the themes, the progressions and the transits in your life for your own growth and also to benefit others. All right, so I'm going to pass it to Danielle now, and she's going to put on Maurice's video because he's not here today.
Actually, that's me. Okay. Let me share my screen, share computer sound. And who do we have with us today in virtual reality? None other than our wonderful Maurice. Here we go.
Hey, hello everyone, and welcome. We're excited to present the new installment module for the new Paradigm Astrology course. And we're focusing now on transits, progressions, which is basically the fundamentals of predictive techniques in astrology. Now, evolutionary astrology usually approaches prediction in a more flexible way, which means that we're not making firm predictions. It's not a deterministic approach, but we look at the future cycles and then understand the climate. The same way you can predict the seasons and you know it's going to be colder in the winter and warmer in the summer. It doesn't mean you're going to know exactly what's going to happen the winter, but you do know it's colder. You do know you have to prepare in a certain way. And that's already so rich and providing tremendous information for our development. So basically, when we analyze a natal chart, we're looking at that frozen moment in time, but the planets keep spinning. And we are part of this larger mechanism. Back in the days, they only looked at transits. There was no natal chart. We only looked at where the planets were now or in the future. Now we have that body of knowledge to understand natal charts, so we can refer current positions to the natal and see how it affects us more personally. So I'm going to focus specifically on the sun and the moon. And they are fast moving, but they are, the control room of our consciousness. The sun and the moon are basically representing what filters everything. It is our processing mechanism. And it is our production mechanism, the processing for the moon, the production for the sun. So it doesn't matter, where your nodes are and where the outer planets are. Ultimately, everything has to go through the king and the queen, the sun and the moon. So they are the centralizing force of our chart. And so we're going to, see how the progress moon and the progress sun are influencing and activating our charts. This is probably some of the most important component in the technique called secondary progression. The other thing we're going to talk about is also the transit. And you may ask, well, the moon moves so quickly every day, it spends about 2 days in a sign. Is that really important? And of course it is. The moon flavors every moment. When we look at, what we call electional astrology, which is finding the right date for specific events, the moon is the first factor we're going to look at. So it really flavors the quality of our days, of our moments, and it carries that emotional energy, that personal involvement. So We're going to look at the phases of the moon. So the moon in relation to the sun. We're going to look at the moon itself, and then also a phenomenon called the void of course moon, which I won't get too much into right now, but it is very critical and a fascinating phenomenon to study. And then looking at also the sun when it aspects the angles and how basically it allows us, it tells us about our creative mechanism in every given time. So overall, this is a course, including this particular installment, that will provide you with very solid foundations from very well experienced teachers with a focus on evolutionary astrology. And I want to emphasize that the value of evolutionary astrology is that it finds the right balance between fate and free will. That we're not just, under the control of the stars, that we have a responsibility to use our chart responsibly, to use it productively. So welcome, and I hope, you really see the value in taking this knowledge to a deeper level. We know we can all study from the internet. There's a lot of free stuff out there, but it doesn't compare to supervision and to personal connection and to study directly from very experienced astrologers. Make it happen. We're here for you, and we'll take astrology, your astrology, to the next level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. He was speaking to us from Andromeda. He really gets out there with his Kundalini yoga. Here is Julia.
Thanks,
Welcome.
Kapacha. Good morning from Australia, everybody. How exciting to do this next module. We've had an amazing time with the last 4 and the wonderful students we have. So if you're at a point where you know enough astrology, but you don't know how to work with transits, this is the module to get into. My part in the teaching of this next module is Venus and Mars, both really interesting cycles to get to know by transit, of course, and both very, very significant in this year, 2020. Venus is going to do her next retrograde in May. And Mars is going to do his first retrograde in 32 years in Aries. So when we look at transits of, let's say, the quicker moving planets, as Mercury's retrograde now, it's the retrogrades that are really, the most significant in a way, although there's other parts of a cycle for every cycle around the sun of a planet and its connection to Earth that are really significant for us, because Venus, as some of you know, makes this amazing 5-pointed star in her retrograde cycle over 8 years. So 5 points in 8 years. And these 5 points only happen in 5 places of the zodiac. So, this cycle where she's retrograde now coming up in May happened 8 years ago. And we can sort of time Venus. She's got an amazing timing system, a very natural, rhythmic timing system to know her cycle of from what we call star point to star point, Venus and Sun connections every 9.5 months. Her cycle to complete a whole star is 8 years, but there's a midpoint cycle as well. Every 4 years, a star point repeats itself, and it happens on the other side of the sun. So if we think about May, June this year, when Venus is retrograde, in 2016, she made a star point, but from the other side of the sun. So it's all still very connected. She has this incredible woven pattern in our astrology chart. So I'm going to be teaching that with the Venus transits as well, because I think once you know that, you know so much more about the cycle of Venus and how she is working in our astrology charts. And of course, you know, we know Venus, we understand her as the goddess that connects things together, that harmonizes places in our chart. You know, if she's, let's say, making a transit of Saturn right now to you, she is softening Saturn somehow. She's asking you to be a little bit more, not as cold, not as harsh. She's making you more conscious about the kind of Saturn you have. So transits on the outside of the chart, like Ari showed us, are coming to us. They're coming to us from the outside, and they're coming to a planet or an angle to actually, yes, teach us something, to integrate something about that planet that is in transit. And so, yeah, so incredible, wonderful cycle that Venus has at the moment. She's moving pretty fast. She's actually still moving faster than the sun. And she's slowing down somewhat for her maximum elongation. I'm going to, you know, by learning the cycles of transits, especially with Venus, you're going to know more about what she does, what she means to you in her rhythm around your chart. And then Mars is, let's say, he cycles not as complex and he's not as regular, because his cycle varies somewhat. The regular sort of cycle around your chart is every 2 years. And as he comes along to transit some part of your chart, it's all about activating something. It's energizing something, or it's asking you to be motivated about something else. And Mars transits can also very much bring someone into your life. Same with Venus, a person that might teach you something about love. With Mars, it's about someone that teaches you to stand up for yourself, right? So as quick as these transits might be compared to Pluto or Saturn or Neptune, these inner planet transits are real trigger points as well. Like the moon is, like the sun is. We often say, you know, in a longer transit, let's say Pluto's going to be on my ascendant for 3 years. You know, a transit of Pluto takes a long time. It's the triggers of something like Mars or the moon or Venus that will highlight more predictive places in the chart for timing. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with, I suppose, prediction. Evolutionary astrology is not a predictive method in a sense, but you can't help it with astrology. There's always, you know, it's like, as Maurice was saying, there's a season coming up that's going to be much more tricky, much more difficult to navigate, or, you know, the opposite. There's always good times as well to look forward to. So I'm really excited to bring you this part of the story, so to speak. And transits, I mean, these days, the astrology of now is everywhere, right? We can look at you know, follow an astrologer, or, you know, hopefully following the dream team, but to tell us, you know, what's the flavor of the moment. So now you want to know how to put that flavor into your chart and get to know the patterns of, you know, when's Venus going to do that again, or when was she most significant last time. And same with Mars, like Mars coming up by transit in Aries in September hasn't happened for 32 years. So that is, you know, some of us haven't maybe been around for 32 years, but for those of us that have, we look back 32 years, what happened in 1988 it was. And I just think, you know, on a mundane level, Mars is going to transit Eris for the first time. So where's Aries? You know, I think it's 28 to 14 Aries, you know, that kind of thing. Where's that zone in your chart that's really going to be activated in a different way by Mars? So yeah, learning transits, learning cycles in amongst that is really, really profoundly important for learning astrology. And then of course the progressions of Venus and Mars, they don't move as fast as, of course, the moon in a progression. But if they change houses, if they start to aspect an angle or another planet in the chart, it's really interesting to watch them. And we always talk about progressions as being more of a phase of life, like what kind of phase we're going through. Like my Mars is about to move to Taurus after 32 years in Aries. And that's been, let's say, my life as rearing my children, becoming, you know, setting up home, all that kind of stuff. And now it's going to change. So there's always these shifts to look at, and we're going, you know, of course, teach you what to look for in progressions. And yeah, so I hope you can join us, or again, if you want to know the right way to work with transits, you need to do this course. And of course, we're giving away so many amazing gifts as usual with booking in for this module. My gift is on a video on the part of fortune and the part of spirit, something we actually haven't taught in these modules, because there's so many other points in the chart that we again don't get around to putting into something like this. But astrologers use so many things. So I've done a video on the part of fortune and the part of spirit and what that means in your astrology chart. Very important in ancient astrology, and very significant now to tell us more about what's going on. And through some colleagues of mine, the wonderful software developers, Esoteric Technologies, the makers of AstroGold apps and AstroGold for Mac iOS, are giving 20% off to everything in their shop for anyone that joins this module. 20% off software, Solarfire, AstroGold, AstroGold apps, and Solar Riders, other stuff they've got in the shop. Have a look. I'm sure we'll have the link later. All many great reasons to join this course and learn astrology the best way you can. So thanks, guys. I hope to see you, and over to Tim.
Thanks so much, Julia. That's right, folks. You heard correctly. You get 20% off AstroGold or Solarfire with this course. That's amazing software. So awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. Hey, folks. How you doing? Speaking of transits, happy new moon in Pisces joined with Mercury retrograde. You know, the more we observe this phenomena, we recognize that there are no coincidences. So we're talking about some pretty deep, pretty real, pretty amazing stuff going on in life. I mean, what a ride life is. So I hope you're enjoying it with this Mercury retro that's going on right now. For some of our mutable signs, it may be a good idea to maybe bring a barf bag along with us. Myself personally included. This recent Mercury station squared just within exact minutes of my natal Mercury. And so, you know, it's been an exciting time in my life trying to figure out where to move, where to go. And wouldn't you know, I'll be talking about Mercury transits and progressions in our fantastically informative approaching module. So, for example, in just a couple days, Tuesday the 25th, Mercury retrograde will conjoin in his inferior conjunction with the Sun at 6 degrees of Pisces, beginning a new 116-day Mercury synodic cycle. Did you know that Mercury, having roughly a 120-day cycle, and 120 days being about 1/3 of 360, about 1/3 of a year, Mercury has roughly 3 retrogrades a year. And because of this, Mercury usually has retrogrades in signs of the same element, because signs of the same element form a trinity together. So right now we have Mercury just recently stationed in Pisces. Last November, Mercury stationed in Scorpio. And coming up in June of this year, the next forthcoming Mercury retrograde will begin in Cancer. So again, there are all of these beautiful cycles, and it is amazingly visual. This is a reflection of nature, and there is a beautiful simplicity as well as a depth that comes just from simply observing these patterns. So because Mercury has a 116-day synodic cycle, and we've mentioned the time tracking technique of secondary progressions, Did you know that you have a 116-year progressed Mercury cycle? Meaning you will spend a little over 2 decades of your life in a progressed Mercury period. So there is so much information. This module is so dense, is so packed full of information. And none of us are teachers or knowers of how to foretell the future. But wouldn't it be nice to have an extremely articulate sense of what themes, what intentions, what directions, what types of experiences are happening when? As Ari Moshe and Maurice have said, wouldn't it be useful to have a blueprint of our life with a big arrow that says, this is where you are. This is where you are in the greater scheme of things. And this is what that greater scheme of things is. Again, there are no coincidences. We see in the transits today indicated a powerfully reflective time. This is what transits and progressions are, folks. I mean, this is a real gift, a real power. And with power comes responsibility. Yes. Speaking of responsibility, I will also be talking about the transiting planets of Jupiter and Saturn. And wouldn't you know it, they're going through the sign of Capricorn this year. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are key planetary pairs that are forming a new cycle at the very end of this year. When Jupiter and Saturn conjoin together, this indicates the formation of new philosophies, ideologies, and beliefs as they are formed in structures, institutions, cultures, and nations. And we see a very distinct signature going on this approaching winter solstice, December 21st, 2020, Jupiter and Saturn conjoin together at the 1st degree of Aquarius. And so we know where we are in time. We know what's going on in our world. We know that we are in a period where there is a huge focus on structural changes. This is Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto conjoining in the signs of Capricorn going on throughout this year. And so this is a period via that Jupiter and that Saturn focus. Both of these planets have so much to do with the world. Jupiter and Saturn are in between the inner planets that are more personal, subjective, what's going on in the immediate environment, and those deeply existential outer planets in terms of what's going on with humanity over the course of evolution throughout many thousands of years. So Jupiter and Saturn have everything to do with nations, the world, global interaction, trade. And again, this is where we see a spotlight. Wherever the planets are, that's where the experience is taking place. And I, by the way, have been speaking purely in a transit perspective. As Ari Moshe said, when we bring this into a bi-wheel, we have a complete and articulate sense of how all of these greater cycles going on in the world is affecting and impacting us on a unique, highly individual level. So it is always a supreme gift to have the opportunity to speak upon this nature, which is so incredibly enlightening and so beyond what we are used to in our mundane day-to-day life. This is truly a paradigm shifting science understanding that leads us into a continuous discovery of what life, who we are, and everything in between is. And astrology is like a black hole because, as Ari Moshe said, the moment that we're born starts the unwinding of who we are as a soul in our life experience, and we unwind and we unwind and we unwind. And what life experience and the purpose of living is gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And what our natal chart means and what our purpose for living is continues to develop in meaning and significance. And so this is a science that can be applied to many, many different schools of thought, tools, modalities, structures. This is a universal science. It's not man-made. It doesn't come from anybody. And that's what makes it so beautiful, so divine, and so perfect. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share today. And of course, I so much look forward to connecting you in this course, because you know that you can't just find this stuff anywhere. So I look forward to interacting with you later. And now I'm going to hand the mic over to Sol.
Thank you very much, Tim. All right. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I'm very excited about the particular piece that I'm doing for this module because it's so interesting. You know, astrology is an ongoing love. You just can't fall out of love with it because it's so amazing. I had the great pleasure of hosting a skeptic this weekend, and we had some interesting discussions. We were talking about Mercury retrograde. And it really, you know, what I realized then is that, okay, this is a person who has absolutely no interest in astrology nor knowledge about astrology. And it made me reflect back on the 25 years that I've been doing this. And part of that study has been watching the transits, of course, watching life unfold as we are breathing and walking and experiencing all the Mercury retrogrades and the Venus retrogrades and the solar eclipses and whatnot. We're constantly in this ebb and flow of life. And that has been the proof for me. You know, like if you want to get proof that astrology works, you have to observe the clockwork that is life. I wanted to, you know, share with you how I see the solar system. It is a living organism, and the planets are the chakras, if you like. It's the dimensions that we live in. We live in many, many different dimensions. And the dimensions that I'm talking about this coming module is Uranus, Neptune, and Chiron, which is where life begins to become extremely interesting, because it starts to become an anomaly. The anomalies are popping up. Something that wasn't supposed to happen happens. Fate comes in, synchronicities, maybe this deep, like Chiron, for instance, you spending 50 years to cross the ecliptic and coming back on your 50th year, all the little steps on that path where it activates your natal Chiron or other planets in your charts bring up this kind of fated woundedness in a way. We come through life with these, we get cuts and bruises. It's not to avoid in a way. And Chiron brings in that, and it can greatly disturb this perfect plan you had about doing like amazing things, and then you break your leg and you're stuck in the sofa for 3 months, and you're faced with a situation where you cannot use your energy the way that you would love to use your energy, and it sets off a psychological process about worth. If you're chronically ill, you start to determine your self-worth quite differently than if you can go out and perform and impress and do all the things that normally gives people self-worth. So this is when it becomes spiritually interesting. And with Chiron, the gate to spiritual life kind of becomes a necessity. You know, everything is spiritual. Even doing your dishes, every mercurial little thing you do during a day, it's all spirit, you know, as long as you're connected with it, of course. But once you get to Chiron, Uranus, and Neptune, there is a certain feeling that you cannot avoid these deeper dimensions, the deeper understandings. It's a different kind of experience of time in these particular transits. Maybe some timelessness even, when we are getting these wonderful deja vus, like a past life memory suddenly pops up because you have a Uranus, square Uranus experience, or an opposition, and suddenly you're just reminded of something, or you re-experience something that puts you in touch with your true nature, and the process of individuation, which is the key word for Uranus, continues. it really accelerates this movement. And in particular with this module, we're going to look at the so-called midlife cycles as well at 40 to 42, when Uranus is going into opposition to Uranus, and Neptune will make its first square to its own natal position. These are exactly the kind of times where that particular necessity to be reborn, in a sense, becomes evident. Life is so short, and it becomes a necessity to kind of bring in meaning. It has to have deeper meaning for us. Now, of course, astrology being a study of cycles, we also have to accept that some cycles are very slow, like Neptune is 165 years to cross the ecliptic, and Uranus is 84. So not everybody goes through a Uranus return, for instance. And what that teaches us is that we live in several dimensions at the same time. And that's what makes everything magical. This is when it starts to become interesting. And it also becomes extremely challenging. You know, we've left Saturn behind. We left what is proven. We left what we know. We are leaving the known. And we are venturing into the unknown, and that is a radical experience. It's a radical experience. It's a radical experience in the sense that it takes away a little bit from that ego control. So it's not always up to you, but then again, we are also needing to listen very deeply into our own natal charts, to life itself. There's a certain act of surrender that happens, and this in particular with Neptune transits, which can be slightly chaotic, as can Uranus transits, of course. They can turn everything upside down from one day to the other. So it's exciting themes that I'm discussing, and I must say, you know, the progressions, for instance, the progression chart is somewhat of fascination. It's mind-blowing, to be quite honest, when you start looking at how the progressed chart communicate with the transits and then with the natal chart, and then you get these key moments. Then you start seeing what rhythm your life has, what kind of unfoldment is going on. Now, of course, the progressions to Uranus, Neptune, and Chiron, since they're very slow moving, aren't like the progressions of the moon or the sun or Mercury or Venus or Mars, for that matter. But it's also important because maybe during your lifetime, if you were born with Uranus retrograde, it will at one point go direct. That will be a shift. Or it will touch an angle. That will be a shift. Or the progressed moon crosses them. So there's always something there with the outer planets too that affects the progressions. And we're going to look a little bit at that too, of course. Now, I think that's everything I had to say. And for this particular module, I am okay. So for this particular module, I am giving away the series workshop that I did now recently. So that will be something quite fresh coming out of my research. And it was a beautiful workshop that I'm happy to share with you all. So thank you very much. And Christina, you're up now.
Can't hear you, Christina. Nope. I can't.
No,
Anyone else? No.
it's a Mercury retrograde, so if you could just mime for us, Christina. Okay, we're having a technical issue, so maybe we can swing back to Christina. Kaipacha, is there
after,
anything you would
yeah.
like to add?
Christina, what you can do is work on your microphone. If you have to reboot or restart or rejoin the webinar or something, let me know in the chat. And in the meantime, I will continue. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I have your Christina. Well, I mean, I can. Yeah. From my panel, Christina, you are not muted. Hey, there she
Oh, you
is.
can hear me now?
Okay. Hasta luego.
That is so crazy. Okay. It's Mercury retrograde. Okay. So Soul, next time you get someone who's a skeptic, just show them this video. No, just kidding. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Pisces new moon, which we should all be in meditation and zoning out, right, in Pisces land. But this new moon has the Mars-Uranus sextile, Mars-Uranus trine, which is sextiling the new moon. So I don't know. I feel a little bit of the energizing and excitement from that. I hope you do too. We're so excited that we're starting Module 5 in 1 week. So I hope you all are excited with us to be joining to learn all about transits and progressions. Now, we just spent an entire year learning about the natal chart, right? And so many of you who are, if you were already in that course, we're just so ready to talk about transits, but we really wanted to get a really good hold on the natal chart. And you can do an entire reading for someone that's really significant for them and for their life with the natal chart. But as we know, when we want to bring it alive, looking at the transits are so important to that. So we're ready to lay on that extra layer. I got really super excited because I got my favorite topics, which is Pluto and the nodes, and we're going to touch on eclipses as well. So Pluto, as many of you may know, it takes about 248 years to make a complete cycle around the zodiac. So many of you have probably heard that America is in its Pluto return. Like we are having our Pluto return, right? So it's going to be exact in, I believe, early 2022, 2 years from now, but we're pretty much in it. And that says a lot, doesn't it? Knowing that Pluto is in Capricorn, right? And so our very society, what holds our society together, is in the midst of a metamorphosis. Now, as we know, we don't yet have the technology for human beings to live to be 248 years old yet, but we do experience our own Pluto transits in so many important ways. The Pluto return, first of all, when we're in our late 30s, or for some people, maybe early 40s, the Pluto square, that's when Pluto squares its natal position. And so that is as close as we can get, really, usually, to something as intense as, a Pluto return. Now, younger generations that I found during my research, like say the Pluto and Sag generation and stuff, they're not going to have their Pluto squares till they're much older, like in old age. But right now, most people in our generations that are in middle age, we experience the Pluto square at that middle age point, at about late 30s, early 40s, and that already says something about the metamorphosis that we go through into elderhood, right? That's the first sort of opening of that door. Now, even beyond the Pluto square, Pluto will make all kinds of aspects to our natal chart, depending on how our natal chart is composed. And so anytime we have a Pluto experience, it is a process. As Sewell had said before, with the outer planets, they are like a 2-3 year process, right? So even though it's exciting to look at, oh, the new moon is on my Mercury or something like that, and we experience that unfolding over, say, maybe a month. A Pluto transit, think about that. That is like a 2 to 3 year experience, a 2 to 3 year unfolding of a process, right? And the first contact is usually that shock and awe kind of, because, it's going to reach us in ways that we're not prepared for the exact experience that we go into the outer reaches of our unconsciousness, the places that are at the cutting edge of who we are growing into. And so we're meant to not know that part of ourselves until we are ready and prepared for that part of ourselves to be transformed and empowered, because Pluto is about power and disempowerment. We start to see where we give our power away to. What's the nature of power? And what are some of the distorted ideas we have about power, our own power, and the powerful in the world, right? So there's so much depth with Pluto. And so we'll be going into Pluto transits, because remember, the magic and beauty of astrology is how these transits impact your natal chart. Like I do daily StarCast now, and I know that Pacha and us in the Dream Team, every month for our members in the community, we're going to be doing, the monthly lunar transit reports, right? And they are definitely interesting to consider how collectively we experience these transits, but it all comes down to how these transits impact your unique soul blueprint, which is the natal chart, right? So there's transits can't on their own, really mean anything until we see how they, the magic of the alchemy and how they mix with our own natal chart, right? So if you're ready to go to that extra step with us, then definitely join us. As I said, I'll be doing Pluto as well as the transiting lunar nodes. Now, we talked all about the lunar nodes in the natal chart in the previous module, and this time we're going to go through the natal charts by the lunar nodes by transit. And so the lunar nodes, as we know, they are points of evolution, of collective evolution, and when they touch our natal chart, of our personal evolutionary potential, right? Of the soul's intention, of growth, of karma. And they come together beautifully on our chart when they touch things like our angles or our natal planets, or even do the return, right? We've got like every about 18 and a half years, they do a full return. And we're also going to be looking at the lunar node inverse return, right? Because these times when the transiting nodes touch our natal nodes, I mean, that really is like, okay, we're up. It's our time to realign with our soul's intention. And we can take those opportunities or not take those opportunities, but the opportunities are presented to us. I'm actually going to be looking at some charts at age 27. That's the reverse nodal return, right? When the transiting south node meets your natal north node, and the transiting north node meets your nodal south node, your natal south node. So that is really a time where, your destiny is really calling, and it can be more uncomfortable because we're not quite sure how we can move forward, because it's almost like the past and the future are meeting together. And this is also just before the Saturn return, right? So we have an opportunity to choose our destiny and to go through these uncomfortable periods of growth. And we also I'm going to be looking at some of these charts from the 27 Club, right? There's a lot of artists, especially singers, musicians, who passed away at age 27. And, why is that? What was it that their soul's intention was telling them about this very important time in their life? We're going to be looking at our own natal chart, because it's important for us, especially something like the nodes, that, they're not bodies in space. They are points, but they are just so profound and impactful if we're paying attention to them, if we're paying attention to the signs of, you know, taking the path toward growth rather than staying in the known. And so it takes some real observation and some real deep reflection on who we are and what it means for our souls to grow and evolve. You know, what does it mean for you? And it's unique to you, and you can't compare that really to anyone else. It's really about deeply experiencing your own soul's path. Let's see, and we'll talk a little bit about eclipses, one of my favorite topics. As you know, eclipses are the lunations, the new moons, and the full moons that are joined to the lunar node. So the lunar nodes have a very important role to play in eclipses and in what they mean for us. And you know, eclipses are still enigmas. I mean, they're what made astrology come to life in the first place, and yet we're still exploring what they mean because they are wild cards. And so that really puts it back into the natal chart, that personal path of evolution. You know, we need to understand that. So when we have these eclipses come into our life, and if they activate our chart, you know, what does that mean for us? And how much can I really go into the mystery and take control of my destiny, yet while also trusting that there's something that universe is here to teach me? So I hope you all are ready. And Nico says, going with the stream of the river, raft away with Pluto. Exactly. If Pluto's in the house, then it's like, hold on to your tush, right? But we really want to look at how we can go into these experiences knowing that, you know, look at it. When we hear about Pluto's, you know, coming to, you know, transit our ascendant or something, we might be like, oh my God. But again, it's like a 2-3 year transit. It's an ongoing process. And so we have to really be able to have courage, not be so frightened of it, because of course we know that Pluto can be about those things that we do fear, but part of it is that we're afraid of looking at what we need to face about ourselves. And sometimes, you know, it's like shining the light on the shadow. And we really get to have more of an intimate relationship with our soul, because Pluto transits really ultimately are singular experiences. They put you in touch with your soul. And when you are born and when you die, and only in certain other very unique initiatory experiences in your life, will you be that alone with your soul. And so knowing that Pluto transits are happening and they're happening for you can really help for you to understand how to experience this alchemy even more powerfully. All right, so let's see. I think that's it for me. I did want to say that if you are joining us now and you're going to be purchasing the whole course, the whole program, we have some special gifts for you. I have 2 gifts. I'm giving away my past life guided audio meditation. And right now, I mean, Mercury retrograde, Mercury the psychopomp, you know, going back into the underworld. This is the perfect time to do past life work, especially in Pisces, right? And I'm also giving away 1 month to my new moon circles. Every month I host a new moon circle. We just had one earlier this morning, just in time for the Pisces new moon. And we did a group past life guided meditation. And it was so beautiful. And so I invite you to join me for the next new moon. And if you get the whole enchilada, then you'll be getting some great giveaways that Kai Pacha will be going through in just a minute. So I'll be hopping into the chat room. If you have any questions for me, then let me know. And I really hope that you'll join us for Module 5 on transits and progressions. All right, see you next time. And I'm going to hand it over to Kai Pacha.
Hugs to Christina. That's what it says. Thank you so much. Not only Christina, but everybody, all of the dream team. I really appreciate the opportunity in my life to share my work with such excellent, amazing people, talented, intelligent, and with big hearts. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. This is 2020. I mean, part of the reason that we came up with this module 5 and the School of Astrology is Saturn moving through Capricorn conjuncting Pluto. This is certification, writing the contract, making the commitment, having the discipline, making the course. I mean, we're putting a lot of energy into Astrology Rising. I'm sure that many of you are aware of that, but we wanted to make this course, Module 5, begin March 1st. It's an 8-week commitment. It's an 8-week course. You get a video every week. You get a workbook every week. Well, you get 2 videos. And then at the end of that week, there's a live question and answer webinar with your particular faculty member. Each one of us takes a week, okay? Just like the other previous modules. That is the other reason that we are doing it now, is that we have over 200 people took modules 1 through 4. So there are kind of that, and that ended last October. And it was like, okay, we want to go on. We want more. So we wanted to create this module 5. It goes from, through the month of March and April. And then our hope is that you all come to Astrology Rising. And we have, certification lunches and dinners and, meetings on the beach, and everybody gets to know each other, personally right there. And then continue on with the final module for certification. That final module is basically one-on-one mentoring with your dream team member of choice. And then finally ending up with myself, I am doing a reading, okay, where I work with you and the client, and we really nail it. We want to nail it, folks. It's important when you're working with people that we don't mess them up. This is part of why, you're right. Some of I read in the in the chat box, some of the terms, okay, even the astrological terms are a little confusing, and it's a lot of information, and there's a lot of astrologers out there who they're not certified, and I get stories over and over again of this astrologer told me I'm going to die, and this astrologer told me it's very scary. So it's very important. I want to really encourage everyone to take this art science very seriously. As an astrologer, you have a very powerful impact on people. They really look to you as an authority of their unconscious needs, fears, worries, traumas, and they take things in. And even if consciously they may not, you sow seeds with every word, with every reading, with every consultation. So I really want to emphasize that we are really very, very consciously wanting to create, powerful healing individuals through this course. So we are doing our very best, and I want to just share my screen with you to show you what that includes. Did I get smoothie on my face? Okay. Here. This is the Astrology for the Soul. This is bringing it alive. And what you receive with this is, like I said, each instructor, Maurice, Christina, Tim, myself, we each give you 2 videos on Sunday night. You've got all week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to look at the workbook, download the workbook, print out the workbook, listen to the video, move through the questions, really delve deep into the material, ask questions on the forum, go onto the Facebook group page, share with other astrologers, upload your chart, share with, the other students. It's all, so we have the workbook, we have the videos, we have the online forum and questions. And then at the end of the week on Saturday, the instructor for that week comes on live, and you have an opportunity for, with the chat box, to just and submitting these questions beforehand to really get clear on all of this. That is the point. Okay, so what we're also now doing is, March 1st is around the corner. So what we're actually, we're encouraging you, and we're giving special, advantages and some, some presents for you if you sign up in the next 48 hours. So I have done I've done like a number of workshops around Lilith. We have all done Getting Stronger with Saturn. This is an entire 8-week course, very similar to modules 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Only it's focused particularly on Saturn. And right now with Saturn, with the Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto conjunction going on, this course is wow. All I can say is I really feel like it's, one of our best. And of course, through this whole thing, you'll want to be doing some Kundalini yoga so that you strengthen yourself to handle all that information. Jules already told you about her part of Fortune and Spirit video. Okay, so that's, you add those all together. I mean, the cost of this course, is you're getting as many gifts as like twice the price. And then Jules also talked about the 20% off discount for Solar Fire, Astro Gold. Astro Gold can be on your phone or on your Mac, or Astro Gold goes all over the place. I use Solar Fire myself. I will be using Solar Fire in the course and during the certification module also. Now, if you're new, to this, and this is your first time, you may want to sign up for the complete course. It's at a great savings. It is over a year's work of astrology. We now have 5 modules that are 2 months long each. So that's 10 months if you want to take the entire full course. So if you would like, we want to encourage, that, and with, the way we're encouraging you is with the Moon Workshop. Sol's doing the evolutionary levels and the series. Christina's doing the past life meditation. Ari is giving away these holy nutrients, along with the evolutionary astrology. We've got the memberships. It's like, woo! If you sign up for the complete course by 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you are going to save, or you're going to get free gifts valued at over $600. Ow! That's a lot of astrology, folks. We got astrology and yoga and memberships. You're going to make new friends. You're going to, this is a life-changing opportunity. That's really, and if you are in the New Paradigm community, you receive an additional discount of $50 for Module 5. And let me see, I think, did we? Danielle, I'm sorry, I don't know that all right. And actually this 150 is, we can even, I believe that's actually 250. Yeah. So the course, the course and all of this is really explained very much more so on our website. So let me stop sharing, and Daniela can put on the link that you can go to the website for all the final pricing. If you are listening on YouTube right now, or you're listening hopefully within the next 48 hours of right now, you will be able to take advantage of this opportunity to sign up, join in, join with others. We've already got a number of people signed up. So we're starting in about a week. Yes, about a week. I hope to, be working with you through the months of March and April and beyond. And I want to thank you very much for your time. Maybe we can bring everybody on to say goodbye, so long, farewell. And I think they only get the speaker view, so we'll take turns saying bye-bye so they can see your face.
All right. Bye, everyone. Hope to see you soon.
Pleasure speaking with all of you. Looking forward.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy new moon, everybody. I hope you have some beautiful wishes for this new moon. It is truly a magical new moon in Pisces, and I'm wishing you all the best.
See you, everyone. See you soon.
And I will say goodbye for Maurice. Namaste. Aloha. So much
Love.